Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Self Connection with Ginny Brown and Kelly Pietro, where we have conversations with the multitude of the greater good.
The multitude of the greater good is a group of spiritual healers and teachers, and they have come to help us learn to be like more of who we are, get to know ourselves, and allow ourselves to connect in spirit with ourselves on the earth plane. Kelly will ask questions, and I'll channel answers from the multitude.
All right. Thanks for being here, Ginny.
I'm glad you're here, Kelly. Couldn't do it without you.
Couldn't do it without you. So today's topic, I thought we could center around empaths.
Oh.
The term empath, what it means to be an empath. There seems to be, you hear that word, that term used more and more these days in spiritual discussions. And I thought that the multitude might have something to share on the topic. So before I ask a question, if they do want to share something before I start asking questions.
We would like you to understand that as each one goes and each one grows, each one develops themselves differently. Some allow themselves to grow spiritually, some allow themselves to grow, it's like internally, some allow themselves to grow on a more physical or earthly level. There are those, however, who have chosen to allow themselves to become the feelers of the universe. It is the feelers who allow themselves to tap into the energies of being. And when one decides that it is right to become a feeler, so to speak, one allows oneself to open one's heart differently. We would like each one to each one to understand that as each one grows and moves beyond themselves, each one allows themselves to grow in a higher and greater way or opportunity of being. In that, one can expand oneself in one way and one can expand oneself in another way. And it does not matter how one expands oneself, as long as one expands oneself. Do not be concerned. Each one knows why one has come to the earth plane, and each one allows each one's own self to experience those experiences that are required in order to allow one's growth processes. Do not be concerned, all is love.
All righty. The feelers, tapping into the energy of the universe. Okay, so that to me is kind of a little bit of the definition. Can they speak to what common, okay, I don't want to use the word lessons because they always say there are no lessons, there's learning. What common themes of learning do most empaths share as being one who is a deep feeler on the earth plane?
It is important to understand that empaths choose however they wish to like promote themselves or move themselves forward. We would like you to understand that the only unifying trait or requirement is that each one acknowledge themselves in their feeling state. When each one allows themselves to know that it is the feeling part of them, it is not everyone, it is only that part of self that allows oneself to move forward differently. We would like you to understand that there are many on the earth plane who feel, but those people are not always empaths. It is the empath that moves itself forward through feeling, through growth of opportunity. Those on the earth plane who can feel and allow allow themselves to move forward in a different path and a different state of learning. It is important to understand that as you allow yourself to move forward, it does not matter how one chooses to learn, as long as one learns. We can tell you, empaths believe it is most difficult to participate on the earth plane in that feeling state. There are many who choose to turn it off. However, 99% of the time, they are incapable of turning it off, as it is an innate process. It is to be learned, to be worked with, rather than deleted or negated. Do not be concerned. When it is that one learns how to be who one is and allows oneself the state of being and knowing that is normal and natural for them, they are able to move forward in such a way as to say, okay, this is me. This is what I know. This is how I feel. It is important for each one to understand that in one's own knowing, it's the ability to be who one is. When one understands that it is part of the self, one is able to move forward and allow another to have their own distinct, it's like capabilities of being, as not each one is an empath. Each one feels, each one is, it's like important for each one to feel. However, each one is not, each one does not have the same capabilities of the other. When it is that one is able to move forward and allow oneself to learn how to work with the gifts that one has, one is able to move on to the next step and the next step and the next step. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Okay, so I like how the multitude kept bringing it back to it is your feeling. So one of the common things that you'll hear empaths say is, well, I can feel what everybody else is feeling. And I wonder if the multitude has something to say about that.
It is important to understand that, yes, empaths can feel others' feelings. However, they are not responsible for the other's feelings. When an empath feels the feeling, the empath believes that it is part and parcel of themselves, and it is their responsibility to heal it or cure it or whatever, or however else you wish to word that. In our estimation, each one is responsible for each one's own feelings. And if one can feel that another is upset, one is able to say, oh, this is my ability. It is not my upsetness. And when one can say, oh, I understand that it is not my upsetness, I can help this other person if they are willing to be helped. There are many times others are not interested in help. They are only interested in moving themselves forward in the best way that they know how. An empath, on the other hand, is interested in not only helping themselves, but helping others. And when an empath is interested in helping another, it's like it can become quite a journey and quite a difficult, it's like I'm seeing a lane, a pathway, quite a difficult undertaking. We can tell you each one is responsible for each one's own self. Each one is not responsible for the other. One is always able to help if the other is interested and responsive. And if they are not, it is not up to the empath to prod and poke further, as no matter what they say or do, it will not be accepted. Do not be concerned. When it is that each one decides how it is they are to be on the earth plane, and how it is they are to learn on the earth plane, and how it is that they are to offer help and understanding on the earth plane, each one knows how it is for them to proceed. in our estimation. An empath has a boundary issue. If an empath is interested in helping themselves, that is beautiful. If an empath is interested in helping another, it's like a boundary. It is important that the empath understand that there are boundaries. Others have their own ways of dealing and being, and it is for the empath to stand straight and tall in their own shoes and allow others to stand straight and tall in their own shoes. When an empath tries to fix something that is not theirs, they can become quite upset and dejected, and it is not their path. Do not be concerned. When the time is right, the time is right, and all is love.
I love everything they just said. Yeah, I think, you know, for me, it's been a journey of understanding those boundaries, creating boundaries for myself and for others, or really for myself, right? But then upholding the boundaries so that I'm not finding myself in compromising situations.
Right.
So yes, while I can sense other people's feelings, it used to be that I would rush to fix the situation so that I could become comfortable, really, because that's what it is. It's like, I'm uncomfortable that you're uncomfortable. Let me fix it so that I can feel comfortable again, because the sauce is too spicy to be marinating in. And I would rescue friends all the time and then be a little resentful. And it was like, well, they never asked, you offered. And you offered knowing you didn't have the time and knowing you didn't have the patience, you didn't sleep that night. And yeah, but when you can feel someone's suffering so deeply, so acutely, it feels like that can be the solution, but that's not always the solution. And just to what the multitude said, they might not want it.
Right.
That's none of your business.
Well, what I found for me is like, when I tend to want to take care of this person and help them and fix them, basically, I've learned that I have to disconnect from them. And when, I can't be in their shoes with them, feeling what they're feeling, going through it, because in that way, I cannot be there for them. I need to stay in my own shoes, allow them to be in their own shoes, and that way I can be a support system without trying to fix them, just be there to help them in what they need. Took a while to learn that. It took a long time to learn that.
Yeah, sometimes it's just to be there as a supportive ear and not to become their solution.
Right.
I think I used to find myself in those situations where now I'm becoming their solution, which sometimes further enables the suffering or the dysfunction that we're witnessing or that they're experiencing or the pain that they're experiencing. It prolongs because that pain sometimes is a process for them to undergo in order to progress in their life. And if you're constantly rescuing someone away from that, they're not having the learning opportunity that their soul is desiring.
That too.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, that kind of speaks to, I have here the shadow side of being an empath. Maybe the multitude can speak to any tips for empaths that find it to be so overwhelming to be in the world in this heightened state of feeling. Is there anything that they could recommend?
It is important to understand that each one brings with them that which they need to learn. They also allow themselves to bring with them the solutions to what they need to learn. However, the solutions are not always evident. They are there, but sometimes they are like, it's difficult for them to be seen or felt. It is important to understand that sometimes help is required, and help is required. However, it is for that person to heal themselves rather than to rely on another for their healing. It's like, because as you have said, you can't do it for them. If it is that you try to do it for them, they don't learn how to do it for themselves. And then you just become an enabler for poor behavior.
Yeah, it's like, it can create codependent relationships and that sort of thing. Okay, so what would the multitude say about, there's a lot of empaths that feel like victimized by this state of being, and they will say things, you can feel there's like a lack of self-empowerment. They'll say things like, oh, I can't be with those people because they're energy vampires, or they come home and they want to smudge themselves and do all sorts of ritual because they feel like someone else's energy is stuck to them, that they are burdened by this. And it really does feel like they feel victim to it. Is there anything the multitude can share about folks in that current state of being?
It is important to understand that as it is that they are acknowledging who they are and acknowledging their being and their susceptibility to other people's energy, they are disregarding their own power, their own ability to stand straight and tall in who they are, their own ability to say, okay, that's yours, that's not mine, and I no longer wish to accept it. When one can stand straight and tall in their own shoes and say, this is what I know about me, and this is what I believe is right for me. And when they can say, okay, I understand that you have an issue, but I do not need to accept your negative energy, your negative imposition. It's important to understand that when one recognizes one's own power, one does not necessarily need to accept whatever energy is being thrown at them, so to speak. Whatever energy that someone else believes is appropriate to. It's like you mentioned vampires, energy vampires. It is important to understand the only time there is an energy vampire when there is an unprotected self, when one is able to stand straight and tall and say, this is who I am, this is what I know. Vampire energy cannot penetrate the self. It is important to understand there are those who believe that they are victims, so to speak, to another, therefore the poor behavior. However, they are not victim, they are just not sure of who they are and how it is for them to proceed. If it is that they choose to experience a ritual to just disengage themselves from their so-called or preconceived negative energy, it gives the opportunity for one to connect with oneself. However, if one is able to connect with oneself beforehand, there is no need for one to disconnect from negative energy, as it will not light on them anyway. There's no opportunity for it to connect, and I don't know how else to put that.
No, I think that was great. I love that. I mean, like my simple interpretation of that is we always say, oh, everything is energy. But I think sometimes we, I don't know if this is the right term, but like we scapegoat it as energy when really boundaries, I mean, people will say things like, I just picture white light around me, and that's fine if that makes you feel more powerful. But sometimes what it comes down to is being able to just say, no, I can't do that for you. And I think the level of discomfort that some people have with holding a boundary is it's easier to call someone an energy vampire and put the responsibility on someone else that it's their fault, it's the way they're behaving. Well, if you're unsure of yourself and you don't hold the boundaries that you would like to have because it's too uncomfortable for you, that doesn't, it says nothing about the energy vampire. It says everything about you having gained the strength enough to hold a strong boundary in the face of a strong force, what you feel to be a strong force. And I can say, as someone who's had to work through that, and I continue to, it's an ongoing thing. I still, if I'm invited to a place where I know there's personalities, that it's difficult for me to say, I don't want to talk about this right now, or can you stop talking? Or because sometimes boundaries in a social construct are considered rude,
Yeah.
right?
True.
But if someone is like offloading a personal story for me and I don't have the emotional capacity to sit there and endure it, for me to say, even if I say it nicely, I'm so sorry, I'm sure you're going through it right now, but like, I just don't have it in me right now to endure the story and support you. Can we maybe try another time? Like, someone would be put off by that. And as the empath, now I have to feel their discomfort of my boundary. And this is where you can end up compromising yourself or blaming and saying they're energy vampires. Well, you didn't hold the boundary. So yeah, it is. I know exactly what they're saying, what they're talking about. I also know how hard it is. It's hard to have boundaries in especially in a world where there's social constructs that say we need to be nice and what nice looks like.
Well, I think that's one side of being being an empath. Is that what we're
Yeah,
talking? But the other side is to taking it on without realizing you're doing it, without knowing you're doing it. Now, what you're talking about is people who are aware that they're empaths and they're aware that, the energy is coming to them like vampires. But then there are those people, which I think was more like me, is that I wasn't aware that I was doing it. And for a long time, I didn't know how to deal with it. So
yeah,
I think learning about it will help learn how to deal with it. But first, you have to recognize that you're doing it.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I always recognized it.
That's another side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people come to this term through the realization of um I don't know why I get home and I'm so exhausted and I'm snappy at my family but I don't know why. Is it my hormones? Is it this? Is it that? And they start going on this quest to better understand oneself. And then oftentimes they come across the term empath and realize, maybe through people talking about, what that means. Um, and I think, at least for me, it was like, it was described more energetically, like this etherical thing that we don't see. It's out there, and someone's energy is bad and it sticks to you and you carry it. And then I said, okay, well, that feels like it could be me. But as you walk through it, it's like, okay, it's not just yes, it's energy, but it's also, the energy is because of the experience. And the experience is someone ranted and ranted and ranted for an hour, and you allowed them, even though you knew you didn't have the emotional or physical capacity to allow that. And so creating the boundary of words also creates an energetic boundary. You know, it's like they are one and the same almost. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can see that, but the other part that I have learned as I, you know, like improve my energetic self, you know, increase my vibration, all of that, is that I tend to take on other people's stuff and try to heal it. And I do it on an energetic level. I don't do it on a conscious level. So I had to set the boundary, and I would do it in my, I'd see it in my third eye or my imagination, and I'd picture a whole group of people. And I would, you know, just, these are all people's energy that I'm trying to help and trying to fix, so to speak. And I just kind of walked down through the middle of that group, and I turned around and faced them, and I said, I am not going to take on your energy or your issues anymore. I can help you heal them if you want, but I am not going to do it for you. So that's a boundary that I had to set on the energetic level, which helps me to not take it on the earth plane, on the energetic earth plane level.
Interesting. Yeah. Well. Hmm.
So I know sometimes it's hard to understand the
No,
different.
no, it's good. I like the diversity of the interpretations and understanding and experience. Um, okay, well, this is kind of a question that sort of kind of goes with it. I think a lot of people who are empaths come into this statement on their journey, and I'm wondering what the multitude has to say about it. And I think, you know, and I say this because of, you know, friends that I see on social media, the things that they're sharing. And it's this particular notion I'm going to mention. And a lot of them are also proclaimed to be empaths. So I feel like it's somewhat ties together, or at least asking the question would be helpful for empaths to hear. So there's this notion of healing the family wounds or healing the family line. And, you know, there's the support of the science of epigenetics that shows that trauma can get carried down in the DNA over generations. And then there's the notion of incarnating into this family to heal the family line, to heal the wounds of the past. And it feels like this big burden that an individual carries on behalf of others. And I wonder what the multitude has to say about that.
It is important to understand that each one comes to their own, to the earth plane for their own reasons. And if it is that one is interested in healing, you know, family burdens or family wounds, that could be a possibility. However, 99.9% of the time, each one comes to the earth plane to heal their own wounds and take their own responsibility. Therefore, in our estimation, when one is able to heal themselves, one is able to heal it's like the gene or the genetics backwards as well as forwards. It is a matter of understanding that each one can heal the issue. It is not necessarily healing the person. And it can go forwards and backwards and not necessarily be tied to one's historic you know, the line of ancestry.
Right. Oh, okay, well, follow-up question to that is, if it's not just the genetic ancestry, who else could that go forward and backwards to?
And it's important to understand that each one has lived many, many lives. And there are many ways that information can flow, whether it be through the energetic issues of earthly ancestry or energetic issues of, it's like the total being of the person. And sometimes the flow is directed by the healing of the person on the earth plane, which can not only heal the earth ancestry, it can heal the parts of self that have lived over many lifetimes, come in contact with many, many beings, and allow the healing of the experiences of many lifetimes to be completed and accomplished. It is not always, I'm getting energetic and genetic. It is not always a genetic cause or reason for the issue. It is always an experiential one. And when one can heal the experience in one's own being, one can allow the energy to flow to the situations and to the, I don't know, it's like backflow to ancestry and backflow to past lives. Each one can heal whatever it is that is required to be healed. And all is love.
Oh, so that's interesting because I remember when I first, it was like during the pandemic. I don't know why I was guided to do this. And now I just wonder a little bit differently about it versus 4 years ago when I was doing it. I would imagine, let's call it a collective conscious, or I don't know if the right term would be collective conscious or collective unconscious. And, I would imagine that there'd be a commonality of, let's say, okay, so like at the time it was like the collective consciousness of nurses and doctors, right? And I would imagine that during this time of a global pandemic, nurses and doctors and healthcare workers were feeling overwhelmed. We're probably feeling all sorts of different ways, and that I just pictured their souls all kind of congregating under this common umbrella of nurses and doctors, right? That was the one thing they had in common. And I would imagine connecting to them on the soul level and saying, hey, is there anything that you guys need energetically that I can help bring forward? And it's such a, now, even just saying it now feels like very self, I don't know, it feels like, I don't know the word. Like, I'm gonna rescue everybody. It sounds a little pompous, but anyway, I'll continue to share. So I imagined, hey, everyone in this group, is there anything you need? And I would use muscle testing and interview and get that response of, yes, we're all feeling this common, not we're all, but many of, it was almost like a bunch of hands raising saying, yes, I'm feeling helpless. Okay, so let's, is there an energy around helplessness that can be released right now for this particular collective consciousness? Well, yeah. Okay, so I would, and offer some sort of conduit to release that energy. And then, of course, my curious mind, because I like to ask a million questions, was like, oh, I wonder how many souls that helped. And it was, however many souls, and it wasn't just the ones incarnated, it was the ones in the past and the ones in the future and all this. And it was really fun to kind of play with that energy and also to feel like you could kind of help in some way. And at the time too, like separate from that, I would every time I would work on myself and release some sort of energy or work with the energy, I would, when I was done, I would offer that same experience of release to my ancestors, to my future descendants, to my past lives, to the collective. Okay, there's a lot there. I'm curious if that is what the multitude is speaking of, or if they can share anything about that.
Well, first of all, before, I
Yeah,
ask them to answer the question, is like what I see that as, because sometimes I will go in, not on the collective level, but on more of a family level, or I will go in and what I see that as is offering help, as offering love.
yeah,
It's love. It
yeah,
doesn't matter how it works or who it works for. It's just offering love. So I don't see that as a negative. I see that as a positive thing to do.
yeah,
Um, we can tell you, my dear, that whenever anyone is offering help and it is accepted, it is a wonderful thing. It is about being who you are on the earth plane, who you are in spirit, and who you are in all your life experiences, of which you personally have very many. We would like you to understand that as you move forward in this type of love, it is very much a positive. It is a very much the ability of saying, I am here to help, I am willing to help, and whoever needs it, I'm here. It is a supportive gesture. It is not a negative. And when you are able to heal or help heal that energetic anomaly of being, you are able to heal forwards, backwards. Um, you know, future is not necessarily future. Future in cases or encapsulates all the parts of a person. And each time one learns something in each lifetime, one brings it forth or forward to each subsequent lifetime. Do not be concerned. It is all very much a positive and heals on whatever level is required for it to be healed on and carried forward. Do not be concerned, all is love.
cool. Yeah, I got this when you were talking or when you were channeling about it's not necessarily healing it in the future. It's like healing the now so that the future is affected differently.
Yeah.
It's not like traveling to the future and changing it. It's like changing it now so that it affects the future.
Because whatever you learn now, you bring with you to your next life.
Yeah. Cool. So that's really good to know. I mean, I think any energy workers or just any humans listening, that when you complete a process and you feel you can acknowledge that you have outgrown certain old beliefs that no longer serve you, or you've gained skills that, you know, have helped you on your journey, or you've transmuted energy in a way that is beneficial, to just offer offer that in the unseen realms to anyone who is looking for that same transformation is like a way of being helpful, I guess.
But yes, I think that, but I also think if you offer it to yourself first and allow yourself to accept it and allow yourself to heal whatever is required to be healed, then you can help another with that which you know.
Yeah, it's almost like you carry the medicine once you took a dose of it yourself.
Yeah.
Once you have embodied it, then it's offerable.
Right.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay, interesting stuff. I think that's a good place to end instead, unless Ginny, you have questions on the topic or if there's anything else.
Let's see if they have anything to say. We would like each one to understand that each one has a bit of an empathic personality. It is those who acknowledge the personality and allow themselves to heal those parts of self that are requiring healing, are able to move forward and allow their selves or themselves to help others. In our estimation, it is not a matter of being an empath. It is a matter of love. When one can love oneself enough to say, this is who I am, this is what I know, this is what I want, this is what I need, and this is what I do not want. One is able to move oneself forward differently. We would highly recommend that each one take a look at who one is. Allow oneself to understand that there is much more than that which meets the eye. There is much more on the spiritual level than one could ever understand on the physical level. However, when one is on the physical level, one is able to understand that part that is requiring healing. And when one allows oneself to attain the healing required, each one allows oneself to move forward exponentially. When one is able to move forward exponentially, one can heal oneself in many directions simultaneously. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Awesome. Love it.
Okay.
Thanks, multitude.
You're quite welcome. It is important to understand that we have allowed ourselves the energy to, it's like, facilitate information on the earth plane, as it is our goal to help others become more of who they are in a higher and greater way. And we are most pleased to help. Thank you so much for your trust and your excuse me. Thank you so much for your trust and your it's like it's more like allowing them to help us. It is important to understand that when we offer our help, it is not always accepted, and we are most appreciative of those who are interested in learning more about themselves and allowing us to help in the process. Do not be concerned, all is love.
Awesome.
Okay?
Happy to help.
I'm happy to help, and I'm happy to accept their help. Thank
Yeah,
you very
really.
much.
All right, well, I think that's a good place to end. Ginny, what do you think?
I think that's fine.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching today, and we'll see you next time on the Self Connection.
Yes, thank you, everyone.